There are a lot of people who think GM is in a world of hurt, and for the long term, I would strongly agree with that. But over the short to medium term, not so. We got to look at their financials last month, and they look remarkably good, stronger than a lot of people expected, including Wall Street. So, is GM in their final death throes? Well, not yet. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Howdy, gang. How are you? Let's look at what we're talking about. What are we even talking about? Yeah, GM shares soar on Q3 earnings results, beating estimates. I don't know what they've done since then. We could look, but it doesn't really matter. We're talking about the short term versus the long term. They beat the consensus. Shares jumped by 10% over $63 immediately after results were published. The automaker posted a total revenue of $48 billion for the quarter, rising quarter over quarter and only slightly decreasing from a year ago. If you look, these are brighter color is the current year. The dimmer color is last year. So these are, this is not what a company looks like when it's hurting. The figures, which were above estimates of $45 billion, were largely driven by a surge in demand in the last quarter ahead of the EV tax deadline. Company delivered 66,500 electric vehicles between July and September, doubling from a year ago. We're going to see that fall off. We know we are. They're dealing with a lot of headwinds on that front, biggest of which being people don't necessarily want their cars. They're decent. You like driving yourself, which most people do for some reason. They're fine. They're better than the GM you were going to buy otherwise, I would argue. Overall, deliveries stood at 710,000 units, a growth of nearly 8% year on year, which isn't saying much. That's anemic. That's very weak. GM reported adjusted earnings per share of $2.80, above estimates of $2.31. That's a big beat. And adjusted EBIT earnings of $3.38 billion. That's a lot of money. Operating income was 24% above Wall Street expectation of 2.7. The net income, which represents the profit left after all the expenses, had its margin slashed in half compared to a year ago. It was 6.3%, now it's 2.7%. Last week, GM warned that it had been impacted by a one-time loss of $1.6 billion from its EV strategy change, which is to say, fudge it. We're going to fudge the EVs. They're still moving forward with EVs, but the strategy has shifted. The charges were approved by GM's board audit committee last week and were based on the realignment of the company's electric vehicle production to match consumer demand. You see, here's the thing. People don't want EVs. GM has been telling us that. Ford and others have been telling people don't want EVs. What they really say, what I hear them say is people don't want the EVs we're making for the price we're trying to sell them at. If they could get a healthy margin on them at prices people would buy them at, they'd be all in. And maybe they can get there. The reduction of CAFE penalties to zero means they're not going to have to buy ZEV credits anymore in the US, at least for now. Company estimates a $1.2 billion non-cash impairment as manufacturing operations were trimmed, cutting the fat. The remaining $400 million represents actual cash costs, mainly the fees and settlements in canceled contracts with suppliers. Yeah, it turns out when you sign a contract, there is a stipulation, well, you're going to give us this many of your widget, we're going to give you this many dollars for it. And if there's non-performance, there's a penalty. And if there's a failure to actually purchase the widgets we committed to purchasing, we have to pay a penalty for that too. And it was a lot. Might have been $100 million. It was a lot. These figures impacted the net income attributable to stockholders, which also halved from a year ago from $3 billion to $1.3 billion. In a new shareholder letter published, Mary Barra said that the company is increasing their full year guidance. See, we're coming into Q4. Q4 is historically seasonally strong for automakers. They should do well in this quarter. They're not going to have as many EV sales as they did last quarter, but they're going to have sales. They're going to have a big GM tent sale. Everything must go. We ordered too many. Let's move them out. Bargains, bargains, bargains. And who knows, maybe they will. They do also have the new Chevy Bolt that has come on the market. This is going to move some units. At $30,000, it is cheaper than a lot of cars were in Q3 with the IRA. This is a value proposition. And yes, that's the base model, but you can trim it all the way out and still stay well shy of $40,000. It's not like BMW and Mercedes and Porsche, notoriously, where you start at a price of, say, $60,000, and once you've got every option on it, it's more than double. That doesn't happen with the Chevy Bolt. There aren't that many options to add. The company further expects lower gross tariff impact, $3.5 to $4.5 billion, versus the previously estimated $4 to $5 billion. And it's possible, this article happened to be published before we found out that the Senate has been undercutting the president's tariff actions, deeming many of them unacceptable. So this could reverse even more. This could get even more favorable. A lot of GM operations are in Canada. If those parts have to cross the border to be put into cars in U.S. manufacturing facilities, well, they'll be cheaper if there are no tariffs or if they are greatly reduced. The damage is still done. Make no mistake, factories have closed, companies have gone out of business because they could no longer profitably make and sell parts, both in the US and in Canada. That doesn't just come back overnight. Chaos is chaotic. What can I say? The figures are based on tariff rates continuing at their current levels, with materials and suppliers' indirect tariff costs contributing to the estimates. So with tariff relief potentially on the horizon, that could improve GM's position even more. According to GM, tariff mitigation actions are expected to offset 35%. What is a tariff mitigation action? Changing your part supplies, getting them from somewhere else, getting them from somewhere with a lower or no tariff, reshoring some of that supply. There are companies that make comparable parts in the US and Canada, or the US and Mexico. And if it's less than, 30, 40% cheaper, then it makes sense to buy it from a US manufacturer instead, assuming they have the capacity. In the letter, Barra thanked President Trump and his team for the important tariff updates they made on Friday. This is, again, published before we found out that the tariffs may not be able to come into effect at all. The chief executive was referring to the order signed late last week, which expands credits for domestic auto and engine production while expanding the 25% auto tariff to imported medium and heavy-duty trucks and parts from November 1st. Unclear if that has taken effect. The MSRP offset program will help make U.S. produced vehicles more competitive over the next 5 years. I haven't seen the details on it. I know it's something that's in the works. I haven't seen what the details are or how it would be funded. All of that raises questions. There are a number of people in the community, in the Tesla community, who say GM is going to be gone, bankrupt, within a couple of years. I do not see it. A couple of years goes by real quick. They've been saying it for at least a few months, if not a whole quarter. That means we're 1/8 of the way through that estimated timeline. And piling up cash like this is not how you go broke. Having billions in profit is not how you go broke. So they're going to shift their strategy back to the tried and true, back to the dyno burners, the gas guzzlers, the splody juice powered means of motility. It's not great for the long-term survival of the company. It means they're going to continue to lose market share in other markets. In China, they're all but done. They exist as a brand only. They have partnerships by which there are Buicks that are still being made in China. They don't look like a Buick. They don't drive like a Buick. And they're all electric. They just say Buick on them. It's very strange to see in person. It's not what you would expect from a company that's going to be dominating in 10 or 20 years' time. It's not the right action. In Europe, if you don't have an EV that's competitive, you're not going to sell. GM has long sold reasonably well. In other parts of the world, those days may be coming to a close. Any country that has a 2035 target for pure EVs will be at a guaranteed 0% dyno burner from GM ratio by that point. It's just not going to happen. So GM is not going to get serious enough, quick enough to necessarily be competitive in 2035. There's a lot to unpack there. You've got to actually make it happen. You can't just hope. Guys, I don't know if you know this, but please subscribe. YouTube has done another bot purge, and it's killing me. So if you think you're subscribed, double check, because it's a good chance you're not. It happens every time when they purge bots, they purge real people too. Very, very frustrating. What did I miss? What did I misunderstand? Leave it into the comments below, and everybody else stay tuned and juicy, and just know that I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots, perhaps this week when I'm in Austin for the Tesla shareholder meeting. Should be fun.